Bill Simmons asked former NFL running back Ricky Williams if he'd be in the Hall of Fame if weed was legal. Williams with a blunt response.
Would you have been a Hall of Famer if weed was legal?
For sure. No doubt about it.
For sure?
For sure.
Yeah. How come?
Well, I think, one, because I look at the amount of stress and things that distracted me from playing football surrounding cannabis. You know, and I look at the first half of my career when it was pretty much a secret. No one knew that I used, and I could do it, you know, as I wished. And in the last part of my career, I think I would have started. I would have had more touches. And I think as it is right now, 11 seasons, over 10,000 yards.
Ricky Williams' full interview is available on HBO Go. Stephen A., bottom line.
No. Go to Max. I want to hear what Max has to say about this one.
Okay.
Go ahead.
What's the
Max,
question?
should the NFL test for weed?
No, I said this from my first show on First Take. Of course not. It's the ultimate hypocrisy that a league that is in bed with alcohol companies, I mean, they advertise beer during NFL games, right? Says, here, drink this. Alcohol, in all the studies, certainly societally, but even individually, is comparable to marijuana, but in fact has a greater negative impact on individuals and certainly societal impact than marijuana. If alcohol is the standard, then even legally, period, marijuana should be legal. But certainly the NFL, who chooses to test for marijuana, shouldn't be testing for it if they're taking money from alcohol companies. Don't tell me, like, one's legal and one's not illegal. Prohibition lifted on alcohol, and for various political reasons, it never lifted on marijuana. It was based on essentially lies and doctored pseudoscience. The fact that marijuana is a Schedule I drug, which means it's like the equivalent of heroin, the definition is that there's a Schedule I drug, high chance for addiction, which is compared to real Schedule I drugs, simply not the case for marijuana. In fact, more the case for alcohol, and no accepted medical use because it hasn't been accepted by everyone, I suppose. That language gives them some wiggle room, but it's nonsense. Now, in terms of Ricky Williams, Stephen A., I understand why someone would say, it was my first reaction when it was going on too, like, dude, you're willing to give up your career, a Hall of Fame career, by the way. I agree with him, because you look at Thurman Thomas, Tony Dorsett, Marcus Allen, Marshall Faulk, O.J. Simpson, all in the Hall of Fame, all with fewer yards than Ricky Williams and in his first 5 seasons. And Ricky Williams, after that, started getting those weed suspensions. So I think he actually has a pretty good case. But if you say to yourself, as I did originally, hey, Ricky Williams, and I've said this is the irony of testing for weed in the NFL. It actually does catch the people with problems who happen to be addicted. Even if it's not considered a really addictive drug, if you can't stop using and you jeopardize your financial future and your career and everything you worked so hard for, it actually does indicate a problem, right? Except the more you think about it this way. You've already made some money, you've been in the league for a while. Oh, so Ricky Williams would rather smoke weed than play football. That, on its face, sounds ridiculous. But what if I said Ricky Williams would rather have a beer than get punched in the face? Who wouldn't rather have a beer than get punched in the face? Because that's the rough equivalent of smoking weed or playing football. After you've already made some money, football is bad for you. It's not something there are parts of it that are fun, but it requires incredible discipline and physical sacrifice and pain. If you said someone would rather have a beer or get punched in the face, they'd all tell you, give me the beer. Is this a trick question? But if you say, would you rather smoke weed or play football? Are you kidding? Football, of course. I don't see the difference.
Max Kellerman. Thank God you're not running this country. Thank God you're not running this company, because Lord knows what kind of state of affairs would exist. Let me tell you just a few of my personal experiences with people who have smoked some weed. Now, obviously, this isn't everybody. Obviously, some people may handle it differently. But let me just give you a taste, a couple of nuggets of my experience with people who have smoked weed. I was at an NBA game. I was covering a player on the Philadelphia 76ers during the Larry Brown era. It was not Allen Iverson, so I want to make sure I'm clear about that because I know people would think that. It was not him. And Larry Brown went to the play and he said, 3 down, 3 down. And at the scorer's table in front of myself, the late Phil Jasner for the Philadelphia Daily News, God rest his soul, my colleague, I still miss him to this day, you know, and a bunch of other guys. The player looked at Larry Brown and went like this, huh? That's what he did. This is what happened. You see people, family members, for example, not my immediate family members, but family members, nevertheless, as the late Bernie Mac would say, we all got, you know, screwed up people in our family. Don't act like some of your members ain't messed up too. Okay, I have family members that will puff and pass, whatever the case may be. You understand? Everything is slow. The world, everything is mellow. There's no level of urgency. They move at 2 speeds, slow and stop. When you think about Martin Lawrence, one of the greatest comedians ever, when he did his stand-up, you so crazy, talking about smoking some weed, and you start getting psychological and all of this other stuff, or philosophical rather. Water was glistening all over your body. That's what Martin Lawrence said. Everybody cracking up and laughing because there's a level of mellow, there's a level of calm and cool and collectiveness, but no urgency. Nothing hyper, nothing passionate. The world will be around tomorrow. That's my experience in all my years of watching people.
If that's the case, that'll show up on the field. If they can still ball, who cares?
Let me finish. Of watching people who smoke weed. So now we come to the big point of what I'm saying with the NFL. You're sitting there and saying, don't test them. I'm like, wait a minute. If this in any way is deemed something that I believe as the NFL could compromise my product, what's the harm in me saying, no, you can't do that? You can't discipline yourself enough to not do it during 6 months of an NFL season? You really, your
keep
position,
catching stars,
you're
Stephen.
advocating.
Stephen A., they keep catching stars. These guys are playing well.
They can't hear both of us, bro. What are you saying? They should throw aside rules. They should just get rid of them, eradicate them, because the NFL players can't control. If you are one of the 1,600+ NFL players, I want you to listen right now to what Max Kellerman and others are saying about y'all. We need to get rid of the rule because you can't discipline yourself enough to know I am going to cost myself millions of dollars. I ask you a question, Max Kellerman.
Okay.
Have you ever seen a joint? Have you ever seen a joint in your life that costs $1 million+?
Okay.
Tell me, take your time, I'll wait. Take your time, I'll wait.
Now, I want to answer
one joint.
Your argument is centered on the fact that it has negative consequences for the behavior of those who use it. Of course, there's some negative consequences to it. Mark Kleiman, the professor who at UCLA and now I believe NYU, has studied this extensively and talks about how much like alcohol, most of alcohol sales are concentrated in a relatively few alcoholics. The same thing will happen with marijuana if you legalize it. There are negative consequences naturally, but your argument is it'll make them worse players in certain respects. Okay, but that'll show up on the field. And if they're not worse players on the field, why are you testing them in the first place? It doesn't make that'll show up in performance.
Because Max, because it's easier to hide. If I'm drinking brew, if I'm drinking a Budweiser Heineken or something like that, okay, particularly if I'm inebriated, that's something that's going to come across relatively obvious. In the case of weed, they want to test for it because obviously there are mechanisms in place where you could disguise that a bit more easily. I'm not an expert in this, but these are the kind of things that I've been told.
So if you can still play, you're arguing it decreases performance. If your performance is still good enough that you're a star, that you're getting paid, so it decreases it, so what? You're still better than most.
I'm saying to you, I'm not debating the issue of alcohol versus weed. As far as I'm concerned, you can get rid of both of them for all I care.
Oh,
but don't tell me that a rule should be eradicated because guys can't discipline themselves enough.
Incidentally, you know why partly they can't discipline themselves?
I have no problem with guys. I have no problem with people who want to do that stuff if they're working in a profession that it doesn't compromise them and cost them their money. But if you are an NFL player and that is the rule, and you can't control yourself enough to cost yourself millions, you're an idiot.
No, do you know why why partly they can't discipline themselves? You talk about how they are consuming the marijuana. Like, for example, in blunts, that part is legal. The blunt paper is legal, meaning cigar paper, with high concentrations of nicotine, which is a proven, scientifically proven, highly addictive drug. Not marijuana, which is considered a non-addictive drug. Nicotine, the delivery system for the marijuana, could be, and likely is in many of these cases, addicting the players, and that's the part, and breaking the willpower to discipline themselves. That's the part that's legal. You can legally acquire the nicotine in the tobacco paper, but you can't smoke the weed, which is, again, not as bad for you as the alcohol, which is also legal and is also essentially they're in bed with the NFL and broadcasters on this issue. I mean, it's so hypocritical, Stephen A.
We have to go to break.
But I know it's hypocritical. What I'm saying is the fact that it's hypocritical is irrelevant. If the rule is in place and you can't control yourself enough and allow yourself to be cost millions of dollars because of it, you're a damn addict. You got a problem.
That's the irony of it all.
There's also the issue of pain, and you could argue that painkillers are more detrimental to a player's health than any form of marijuana. We have to leave it there, though. When we come back, Carson Wentz received a very warm welcome from the fans last night. How long, though, till he passes Sam Bradford for the starting job? Let's be real. We'll get into that when we come back.